family, 1954 to 58. And there's a few people scattered in here that remember my dad, Jake Ramsey, and my mom, Evangie, and they rest over here in this beautiful cemetery. And I started school here. We had many wonderful things, but we had great babysitters. And June Ooten was one of our babysitters, and she was our favorite babysitter. And Deanie, Sharon's older sister, was one of them. But we very soon we christened Junebug. So in our family, and she lived with us for 2 different times. When Tony was born, he's the last of the 3 boys. We had Scott and Alan and then Tony. And when Tony was born, June was living with us, and he called her and me and my mother all Mama till he was about 3 years old. But Tom, I want to thank you for inviting us today and giving up your preaching time. That's really great. And I want to thank June for hosting us, and Jane and Bill for having us over last night for a lovely meal and an evening of talking. And thank God for all of you because of what you have done and what you are doing and what you are going to do in working for the Lord and spreading the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ all over this world. I brought a Bible today that I actually bought when we were in South Sudan, and I just want to read to you from Isaiah, which is one of my favorite books, Isaiah chapter 49, verses 1 and 6. Listen to me, all you in distant lands. Pay attention, you who are far away. The Lord called me before my birth. From within the womb, he called me by name. He says, you will do more than restore the people of Israel to me. I will make you a light to the Gentiles, and you will bring my salvation to the ends of the earth. That verse about going to the ends of the earth is very much like the one Jesus said in Acts chapter 2, verse 9, right before he ascended back into heaven. He said, you will receive power, which we know is the Holy Spirit, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth. And I wanted to share with you all today just a few things. When I married Boo Hankins 46 years ago, I had no inkling of the places we would go, as Dr. Seuss used to say. Oh, the places you will go. Boo had been called as a young man into missions when he was a college student. And we got married, and then God called me too. And so we began, and we were gifted with 2 beautiful daughters, Rachel and Bethany, who are both married and have given us 5 beautiful grandchildren. If you want to see pictures of my grandchildren, just come. I've got videos and everything. But as we look back over our many years, both of our daughters have also been in missions at different times, and I just sat down and made a list, and I wanted to share with you all the places that our family of 4 have gone in this world. Our first was to Belize in Central America. Then we went to Utila as part of the country of Honduras, also in the Caribbean. Of course, back here in America, Boo was ordained a pastor and served for 44 years. And after our girls got into college, I went to seminary, and I was ordained a pastor 17 years ago. And so I'm still serving as a pastor up in the Withful district to 6 churches. Tom, I have 6, yeah. And so Boo and I have served, I think we served 8 out of the 12 districts in Holston Conference between the 2 of us. And then we went to Liberia, West Africa in 1980 for 7 years as missionaries. Then Boo got to go to Nigeria while we were there. Rachel and I went to Kazakhstan one of the former Soviet republics. She actually lived there for a year as a volunteer missionary. Then I went on a mission trip to Costa Rica. Bethany went to Ecuador and Puerto Rico. And then Boo and I went to the Czech Republic 3 times, leading mission teams. And then South Sudan 3 times. And that comes up to 25 years in 11 countries. And to God be the glory. Well, let's talk about South Sudan. This picture is what got it all started. You may remember Bishop Swanson. And, we had work already in Africa. We were in Liberia, Zimbabwe, and someone sent this picture to Bishop Swanson. And it's taken in the Darfur region of northern Sudan. And this little girl is crawling on her face trying to get food. And the photographer who took this called it wanting a meal. And you see behind her that buzzard, that vulture, just waiting. And the picture actually won a Pulitzer Prize. And when Bishop Swanson saw that picture, his heart just broke. And that was 2006. He said, we've got to do something for Sudan. And so that began the ball rolling. And I'm going to tell you kind of what we did there. Just hold off on the slides for a minute there, honey. I'm going to get those after I kind of give them a rundown. We got to Sudan in 2011 when we found 16 United Methodist churches, people who'd been traumatized by 50 years of war. For generations they'd been in war. They were the youngest church in South Sudan and the neediest. So we went to visit each of the 16 churches, and each presented us with a long list of needs. The greatest needs they had, though, were for clean water, because they had to go miles to get water out of a swamp or a dirty river. And so our first priority began to be drilling deep water wells. And the Holston Conference Foundation took that up, and we began drilling a well for every one of our 16 churches, a deep water well. And we're talking 80 meters, so it's really deep. And each well cost $10,000. Some of you may have contributed some money so that we could provide water for the people of South Sudan. After we visited the churches, we just had to prioritize the needs, and that became a long list as well. Isaiah 41, verses 17 and 18 and 20. When the poor and needy search for water and there is none, and their tongues are parched from thirst, then I, the Lord, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will never abandon them. I will open up rivers for them on the high plateaus. I will give them fountains of water in the valleys. I will fill the desert with pools of water. Rivers fed by springs will flow across the parched ground. I am doing this so all who see this miracle will understand what it means, that it is the Lord who has done this, the Holy One of Israel who created it. And I preached the woman at the well sermon there several times when we went to formally bless and dedicate our wells. We had teams coming so frequently to Sudan that they decided we needed to build a big guest house that would hold up to 14 people. And that took us a year to do that. And it was called the Captain's House in memory of Linda Bird Wright's husband, who died in a car accident, and he was an airline captain. And her family gave the money to build the Captain's House. And then our next urgent need was orphans. There were so many children there who had nobody to take care of them. The pastors and the churches were absolutely overwhelmed with little children who had no one to support them. And so we began to find sponsors. This was our first baby, Rebecca. Her mother died in childbirth. The father didn't want her. and the old grandmother was trying to take care of her, and we got her bottles and formula and all of that, but the grandmother just didn't know how to do it, and little Rebecca became very sick. And so we found somebody here who would send money to help buy the things for Rebecca. When we saw her there, it's a little dark, but I was holding her, and her little arms and legs were about as big as my finger. And when Boo went to take the picture, she raised her hands and smiled, just like that, and it just touched our heart. She was our first orphan, and we got up to about 8 or 9 with people supporting them, and this was her first home, her grandmother's house. The sticks there are that far apart, where the rats can get through. So she did not have a good home. But this project still goes on under the name Shalom, where people want to support orphans. Fred and Libby Deering took our place in 2011, and they've been there now for 16 years. There on the right, you see Rebecca today. That was 2 years ago. Healthy, bright, wonderful little girl. But Fred and Libby came, and Libby's burden from the very beginning was to provide a children's home because of these children. And she even named it Grace, for God receiving all children equally. And the children's home began to be built. We'll show you some pictures. It now houses 22 children. And then we built another one at this church location, and it's Greenland Home, and it houses 12. And that's one of that's the church there where the second children's home is. But when we went there, our bishops gave us this order. I want you to teach them to be United Methodists. Because most of them came out of the Pentecostal church or the Episcopal church. So we met with our pastors one day a week and taught them to be United Methodists. And I taught them English. South Sudan had decided that they wanted English to be their national language. And so I taught them English as a second language. And Boo and I taught them about baptism and serving communion and anointing for oil, with oil for healing. We found sponsors here for children who wanted to go to school, the elementary and high school. And we saw the beginning of a partnership between districts or large churches in Holston and the churches there. And the very first one was Ligatolo. And you've heard that name from Jane. Ligatolo Church was the first one, and they partnered with the Chattanooga district. And we would have picked that church as the best place to start. We actually worked with the team on the building of the foundation for the church building. And the pastor there, Faustino, is the best at English, and he is now in a Bible school with English, and he is preparing to become the equivalent of the first Sudanese district superintendent. But he is the pastor of the Ligatolo Church, and I know you all have been really involved in that, and we have some pictures of that as well. One of their needs was for better health care, and so as we were leaving, a medical doctor couple, Dr. Lynn and Sharon Fogelman, came to Sudan and began going out in the villages and teaching people about sanitation and nutrition and how to avoid malaria and things like that. And they also do evangelism when they go into the villages through a program called CHE. We found a young man who would travel around and teach our teachers in our church schools, because most of our churches have schools with them. That was John Wesley's way to educate Methodists. We left in 2011, as I said, and we have a brand new project that's just getting started. It's, as far as I know, it's a unique thing because we are going to partner with the Heinz and Kraft Corporation to make a highly nutritious food for starving children called Plumpy Nut. The people in South Sudan grow lots of peanuts, and so we're going to encourage them through their co-ops to grow more peanuts, to help them to harvest and shell and grind it into peanut butter. And the plumpy nut eventually will be given to these starving children. And it'll begin at one of our churches called Yondoru, which has the neediest children of all. They have many, many orphans there. And eventually, this is going to benefit the people there who have this business, and they will be able to get more money to support themselves. They'll be able to feed more people, and they'll be able to feed these orphan children. And it's Stop Hunger Now. That's the only name that we have on the project. But our doctors are going to go in and document the children, their names, ages, weights, heights, and then after 3 or 6 months, they'll go back and document. And of course, we know what's going to happen. Once they get good nutrition, the children brighten up, and they become like children that we know over here. Our mission was very early on was christened Hope for the Children of Sudan, and that's been our focus. There's another lady who is retiring as a hospital administrator who's going over with the Mission Society to help Dr. Lynn and Sharon. And I want to read from Matthew chapter 25, verses 35 and 36 and 40. This is Jesus telling his parable of the sheep and the goats. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. So we're going to show you the slides quickly. I'll describe each one of them. This is a map of South Sudan. And Boo, I don't know if you can point to the place where Ye is on there, but no, we can't do it. But it's, you see where it says Juba there down in the little red and black thing. There you go. He's got a pointer. He'll show you where Ye is. It's down right near the border of, can you reach it? Won't reach that far, but it's down near the border of Uganda and Congo, right there where that little dip-in place is. That's where Ye is. And that's the headquarters of our work there. When we were in Liberia, they told us this proverb, when two elephants fight, the grass gets hurt. And this is what has been hurting South Sudan. These two men, President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar, they are different tribes. One of them is a Dinka and one is a Nuer. And they're very, very aggressive, and they just love to kill each other all the time. And so what has happened is that they've driven all of these refugees out of their homes into these UN compounds. I'd never seen anything like this before. But thousands and thousands of people living in under these little tents, you know. Children are the ones who suffer. The children are the ones who suffer the most. This was taken just a few years ago. This is just this was very recently, of a children who needs that plumpy nut to survive. This is Boo and I holding different children as we visited there. The one of me, that little girl there, I held her before her mother did because I was there. Mother delivered twins. And Diantha Hodges and I were there, and the doctor just handed them out to us as he delivered the babies. And that little girl was named Phyllis. These are the children of Grace Home. We went there in 2013, and we dedicated the new home. It's just going great. The church right next to it is Pakuka, and this is the worship service. The First Church Maryville partnered with that church and built them a new church building, and different people have given to build the orphanages. Fred and Libby spoke at Resurrection a couple of years ago about what was going on there. And this is an example of a little girl whose mother died in childbirth and whose father abandoned her. And so the church has had to take bottles and formula, and those things are extremely expensive for the people over there. These are two of our Greenland home children. You don't see children smile like that a lot unless they've had good nutrition. And then in 2014, we had teams. This is at Ligatolo, the one on the right, and this is the church and new school blocks that are going up at Ligatolo, and Fred tells us they're now all under roof. And of all the schools in South Sudan that we visited, Ligatolo was the best because even their children could speak English, which was very unusual. And on the left is another church called Redia, and again is the Ligatolo United Methodist Church that we actually worked on in the foundation. We got mosquito nets. At first, we could only get those by teams, but now they're able to get some, and every child at the children's home has a mosquito net over their bed. And this is the Greenland home. When it opened, there's about 12 kids there. And these are also pictures from out there at the Greenland area. Those things on the ground on the left are the stands to hang the nets over at the head and the foot of the bed to protect the kids at night. Was that it? Okay. The chair of the missions in Chattanooga District is named Brent Burris. And your advanced special number is 537 just for general support. But we were telling Jane and Bill last night that if you want to support just the Ligatolo work or just an orphan or, whatever you like, you can put that on your information line on your check, and they will see ours in Withville goes to the district office, and then they send it on to the conference, and then it gets wired to Fred and Libby from the UMCOR headquarters in New York. So you can give to anything, but we encourage you to continue what you have been doing. And I told Jane last night, I said, you need to go on a team over there. Maybe there's a couple of people in this audience today who might like to go on a really exciting mission trip and go over to South Sudan, because it's hard to really explain it just seeing it, up on slides like this, but to actually be there. And God just did so many miracles. Y'all mentioned that a while ago. We have now drilled 40 deep water wells. 40. And that's just not only Holston. We had conferences get involved in New Jersey and Texas and South Carolina. When people heard about it, it just sort of caught fire. And what we did after the wells is the leftover money goes to build latrines, because that's the next step in sanitation. And so it's like you got so many different targets that you're trying to hit. And so they've tried to now, with this Stop Hunger project, they're going to try to focus more down on this one thing that will hit the economic and the nutritional and the orphans, and the schools. It will be a win-win for everybody. And so we're just excited about that. Time to go. Boo and I will be here at the back. If you'd like to have any questions answered, we'd be glad to do that. But we just want to again thank you and pray for the people of South Sudan. The exchange rate has just ballooned now, and it's even more difficult for them to live with the money situation. And so we just ask you, pray for their safety, pray that God's going to settle down those two men, and that South Sudan can really start building again. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. God bless you.
And we certainly appreciate you being here. And Boo, thank you, too, for coming. And we appreciate all the work that you've done. And, we need to really consider these things. And you mentioned, if someone has a desire to go, I had already spoken to Phyllis. She's not sure when the teams are going, if you'd be interested in going. But I'll find out. So I'll have that information for anybody that may want to maybe join a team to go. But all of us are invited to pray and certainly give as you're able to do to help with this tremendous thing that God's doing. And so we just want to thank you again for coming and helping us to see this. I'm very thankful that our church is very mission conscious. We're aware and try to help in a variety of ways with a variety of missions. And certainly South Sudan is one of our heartfelt mission projects. So thank you again for coming. It's been a blessing. Let's stand.